Nikki Haley, former South Carolina governor and UN ambassador. Great to have you with us today, Ambassador Haley. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Martha.
So, one of the interesting things to watch here is that we see on both sides of the equation that although Biden and Trump are far ahead in the polls, 60 and 70% respectively of voters say that they want other choices out there. So how important do you think it is for Democrats as well, for the president as well, to do a debate with some of his contenders?
It's interesting to see a president who can't debate, can't lead. And welcome to the shadow campaign that is a future President Kamala Harris. That is what they are trying to do. They don't want him to debate because they know that a primary he would flounder and he's going to do even worse in a general election. But I think they're trying to hide him for as long as they can. It's not going to work. This is really about Kamala Harris. This is really about the Democrats making sure that Kamala Harris is the presidential nominee for the Democrat side, and I think we're going to continue to see it go in that direction.
Let's watch this from Sean Hannity's interview that's going to air tonight with Gavin Newsom, because you've raised the question about competency testing for all candidates. Watch this.
Right.
Do you think he's cognitively strong enough to be president?
I have conversations with him all the time, yes. And I'll tell you what.
You do?
I'm dead serious about that. I've talked to him when he's been overseas. I've been in Air Force One, Marine One. I've been in the limo with him. I've spent time with him.
So what do you read into where Gavin Newsom is positioning himself right now?
I think it's interesting that he wouldn't say whether he's running for president or not, because I think the competency is in question. He knows that Biden won't make it through this campaign, and I think he's hoping that he can jump in there should they try and continue forward with Kamala Harris.
You've made it a very big focus to say that you believe that she will be the candidate eventually, or that's who they're positioning. Do you think there's a chance that the current president, Joe Biden, decides not to run?
I think that there's a chance that he's going to keep going as long as he can. They want Trump to be the nominee. He's pushing forward because he thinks that that's a win he can get. But I think at the end of the day, we have to be realistic. I mean, you look at him by the day and we see a decline. That's not being disrespectful. That's a fact. And I think that Kamala Harris is waiting in the wings. And I think the Democratic Party knows that. And I think they're looking at the fact that they want to see if this is going to be the first female minority president. The problem is they've got the wrong party. I mean, the first female minority president will come from the Republicans. It won't come from the Democrats.
When you look at, we just watched the former president get off the plane down in Miami, and he's facing this indictment tomorrow. Obviously, these are serious accusations and situation that he finds himself in. What's your reaction to what's going on and what we're going to see play out tomorrow? What do you say to voters about how they should look at this?
When I was at the UN, I saw that the president never got an ounce of credit or a moment's peace. I also had to deal with the Russiagate because that's what they were swirling around all the time, and we saw that that was not a fact. This is what I'll tell you. Two things can be true at the same time. One, the DOJ and FBI have lost all credibility with the American people, and getting rid of just senior management isn't going to be enough to fix this. This is going to take a complete overhaul, and we have to do that. Two, the second thing can also be true. If this indictment is true, if what it says is actually the case, President Trump was incredibly reckless with our national security. More than that, I'm a military spouse. My husband's about to deploy this weekend. This puts all of our military men and women in danger if you are going to talk about what our military is capable of or how we would go about invading or doing something with one of our enemies. And if that's the case, it's reckless, it's frustrating, and it causes problems. And, we're looking now, this is the second indictment. We're looking at possibly a third indictment coming in with Georgia. My concern is not so much about how this plays out and what we do with it. My concern is about the direction of the country. The fact that we cannot have Biden win this election. We cannot go through Biden or Kamala Harris winning this election. We've got to have someone that can win a general election. We've got to have someone that can right the ship on this country and get us back in shape, whether it's the border, whether it's crime. We've got to start doing that. And I think the time is now.
Okay. Former governor of South Carolina and UN ambassador Nikki Haley, thank you very much, Ambassador. Always good to see you. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Martha.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.